All right, I'm ready. You can turn me on anytime. Oh, what? I was on? Oh, gosh.
Well, Jason, welcome. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip the camera around so you can see the classroom. And I've already introduced you, but now I'll kind of show you what you're going to be looking at and talking to.
Cool. The roof. Holy cow, that's a lot of people.
We got it's about 55 folks, seniors, most of them graduating this May or during the summer. They are in a information sciences and technology college.
Great. So what high school is this? This kid on the left looks like he's about 18. No, go ahead. Keep going.
No. They're working in teams. They are to compete in our university's idea pitch. So they have to develop a business and do a business pitch for our university. It's ran by our business school. And so that's due in a couple weeks. And so we thought in terms of startups and stuff, you're the man. So we wanted to get you in here to give your insights and thoughts and maybe take some questions afterwards.
Awesome.
So take
wow. Hey,
well,
Emily, just 1 second. Hey, Emily, when we're recording, are we recording this dual pane view? Oh, that looks pretty good. And the picture in the picture of me, is that recording as well? Or because that looks like it's getting cut off. Okay, perfect. No problem. So you're going to switch based on what's going on. Okay, cool. All right, sorry, we just wanted to check the technical stuff on this side.
Sure. As well, folks, let's welcome Jason Calacanis. So you can take it away.
I'm sorry, is there a question? What am I supposed to do? I have no idea what I'm doing here. I know that we talked at some point. Am I supposed to talk about something?
Yeah, I think a good 15, 20-minute pitch about, startups and entrepreneurship and your experiences. They've actually read a lot of your snippets from your Jason list about startups.
Oh, okay.
And by the way, you're being projected on a screen in front of the whole class here, so they can see you. And then when we get to question and answer, we'll just have the students ask the question. I'll repeat it so you can hear it, and we'll take it from there. So it's really your show.
Okay. I've prepared exactly nothing. I thought I was being interviewed, so I will have to think on my feet here. How many people in the room want to be an entrepreneur? Raise your hand. No, raise your hand high, like enthusiastically. Okay? And then how many people want to be a drone bee and not think for the rest of their life and just collect a paycheck? Raise your hand. Drone bees? Oh my God, wait a second. All right, so you just proved my point. There are two types of people in the world. There are entrepreneurs, and then there's everybody else. I can only speak about the entrepreneur. That is all I'm qualified to speak of. To the people who want to be worker bees and drones, there's really not much to tell you. Your life is going to be very boring. You're not going to get much accomplished, and you're going to die and regret not starting a company and not being your own boss and not doing something epic. But by that time, we'll be too late. So this is to the 6% of the class that said they want to be entrepreneurs. Yes. The entrepreneurs in the room, entrepreneurship is a full contact sport, and it is based upon some core qualities. And these qualities is a big debate. Can entrepreneurs be made, or are they born entrepreneurs? It's pretty obvious that entrepreneurs are made. However, they're usually made in their young formative years. Most people who are entrepreneurs had entrepreneurial parents, and they saw that you had a choice in life. You didn't just have to get in line and go work for somebody. You could actually go come up with an idea, execute on it, and be responsible for your own destiny. And this is what entrepreneurship is based upon. It's based upon probably a little bit of recklessness, a gambling personality, risk-taking, and resiliency. Those are the core personalities, traits of an entrepreneur in my mind. And the best entrepreneurs tend to be people who are pig-headed, stubborn, resilient, some people would consider them a-holes at times because they won't take no for an answer. But if you do choose entrepreneurship, what will happen is you will be disproportionately rewarded in all likelihood in terms of compensation and in terms of success. You will, of course, also be challenged to do more. You will have to work harder, and you'll have to be more resourceful and resilient. So I'll tell you, I guess, a little bit about my story, and that can give you some idea of entrepreneurship. My dad was a bartender who opened a bar in Brooklyn, and he was very successful at this bar, and I watched him be his own boss. And then after doing 2 successful bars, he failed at the second one during the economic turmoil of 1987 when the stock market crashed. He then went to work for other people, and I saw the difference in him, my father, from when he was king of the world, when he didn't answer to somebody, to when he became a worker bee, and he was subservient to a jerk of a boss. And he was 2 different people, and I always regretted losing that original dad I had to the one who then had to go work for the man in order to make a living. Although I respected him for doing it because he had to do what he had to do to put his 3 kids through school. So when I came out of school in the 1990s, the early 1990s, in New York City, technology was really starting to bubble up. PCs, computers, started to have CD-ROM drives in them. This was a miraculous thing because for the first time, a computer had enough storage, enough cheap storage, to house a video file or a music file. And this was a revolution because people said, oh my God, computers can be used for something other than simply text. And so a huge boom was started. It was called the CD-ROM business, also known as the multimedia business. And people would spend $250,000 building a CD-ROM, and that CD-ROM would then be sold in stores. And instead of going to a website about the Beatles, you would buy a CD-ROM. Does anybody remember these days in 1992 or 1993? Raise your hand if you remember people buying these things. Okay, so you guys were probably, I'm guessing you guys are 22 or 20, maybe you're 21 in the class. How old are these guys?
22, general ballpark.
So that means in 1995, it was 15 years ago, you were 6 years old. And are you telling me the people in this class were born in 1988?
Yes.
Yes.
Jesus Christ, that's when I graduated high school. I'm the old guy. I used to be like the young rebel guy. Now I'm the old guy. Anyway, when you guys were 6 or 7 years old, the CD-ROM industry boomed. And then sometime around 1994, 95, when I was living in New York, and I had been using the BitNet network, which was the educational version of the internet. It was the internet, but it was called BitNet. This is before the web had a browser. People were using send commands and getting files and Gopher and all kinds of other pieces of software, news groups, but not the web really. And the web came out in 94, 95. People started really getting into it, and all of a sudden one day the web supported images, and something clicked in their brains and they said, oh my God, if it supports images, maybe this is more like a magazine. And so people started saying, okay, take these CD-ROMs and put them on the web, and you don't have to go buy the CD-ROM. And that was a huge revelation for me at the age of 23, 24. And I saw all my friends who were working on CD-ROMs and in the advertising business in New York start playing with websites. And I started a magazine called Silicon Alley Reporter. And I don't know what possessed me exactly to do this, other than the fact that working at a job was incredibly boring to me. I was doing IT consulting at the time, which meant I set up computers at companies. But I started this magazine with no magazine experience as a 16-page photocopy. And I printed it myself. I put the cost of it on my credit cards, $2 or $3 grand. And then I prayed that I could pay those credit card bills off by getting some advertising and subscribers. And lo and behold, I charged $90 a year for it. I started getting 200 or 300 subscribers a month. And that was not insignificant. All of a sudden, thousands of dollars started coming in a month. And it was enough to grow that little 16-page photocopy, Silicon Alley Reporter, into a $12 million a year business with 70 full-time employees. And I was king of the world in New York for a little bit of time. I started going to people, because at that time, the internet was so new that if you had 6 months of knowledge beyond the average person, you were a genius. And that's when I learned really what what it takes to be an entrepreneur is to be about 6 months ahead of everybody else. That's it. In some cases, 3 months ahead of everybody else. Some cases, a year. If you've got a 6 months lead on people, that's all you need to see the business opportunity and get a really significant head start. And so I had a head start. I was covering the internet in my own magazine in the mid-90s. And it grew very big. I became very famous in New York. I was on Charlie Rose, 60 Minutes, Bloomberg, CNN, Fox News. I got an incredible amount of adulation. And I met a lot of hot chicks. And I had a lot of parties. And really great parties in New York with 1,000 people at them, sponsored by huge people giving me $100,000 checks to throw parties. It was boom time. And I was on top of the world. And was really just sort of in shock. Like, I can't believe this thing got so big. It was a little 16-page photocopy. Now I got 70 people working for me. And I learned everything on the job. And I worked extremely hard. I worked every day, 7 days a week. I didn't take vacations. But it was all fun for me. Creating a magazine, creating email newsletters, doing events, that's what the media business, Silicon Valley Reporter, was about, was incredible for me. And then the stock market crashed. And I went from about $12 million a year in revenue down to under $1 million in revenue. And I had to take 70 employees, lay them off, have them say F you to my face, have other ones cry. It was very brutal. And basically got my ass kicked and wound up selling the company for a couple of years' salary to Dow Jones Corporation. And then 9/11 happened, economy crashed, living in New York was very depressing. And everybody said, you know what, this guy Jason Calacanis is a fraud. The internet was a fluke. He got lucky. He's got nothing going on. We always knew that there was no substance there. He was a bullshit artist, and now he's been exposed. And I went from being a hero and a visionary one day to being a goat and a shyster and a hustler the next day. And this was a pretty big whipsaw, and for a 28, 29-year-old to young adult, I guess, to have to deal with, it was, I would be lying if I didn't say it was easy. Psychologically, it's brutal to lay people off. But anyway, I didn't think I was a fluke. And I said, you know what, I have to get back. And the crazy thing was, I was offered $20 million for my business about a year before the stock market crashed. I didn't take it. If I had taken it, I would have made $3 or $4 million. And so you can imagine how terrible it is to sit there, having sold your business. Now you're working for some company. You got a year or two of salary in the bank, and you could have had millions of dollars. Pretty brutal. Basically, you have to look in the mirror every day and say, I screwed up. And I missed my chance. And that lit a fire in my belly. Made me very hungry, more hungry than I'd ever been before, and I was always hungry. So I saw this blog trend in 2002, 2003. I was reading blogs to pass the time. And I said, wow, these blog things are pretty compelling. I wonder if you had 10 of them, if it would actually turn into a business. And if you paid people to do them, if you could make a living from it. And you could sell advertising against this. Now, this was at the time when most people looked at blogs as a personal journal. It wasn't a publishing platform. But I saw something there. Maybe I was 6 months ahead of everybody, maybe a year, but no more than that. And so I decided to start a new company, Weblogs Inc. And we started building blogs like Engadget, Autoblog, Joystick. Basically a blog about video games, a blog about cars, a blog about TV, TV Squad, a blog about movies, Cinematical, a blog about traveling, Gadling, a blog about gadgets, Engadget. And lo and behold, for the second time, the fraud that was Jason Calacanis had figured out how to build a publishing business. And I all of a sudden had hundreds of thousands of readers a month again. And I had advertisers lining up and $100,000 a month in revenue. And I realized, oh, I'm not a fraud. I'm actually good at this publishing thing, and I have some skills and something to offer. And I got to work, was resilient. And a lot of my peers who had been around during that dot-com bust, they went to yoga retreats in India. They went to Thailand to surf. I mean, they checked out. They gave up. They were not resilient. But I've always been a fighter. Things have not come easy for me. I was never like a genius in school. I had a 71 three-year average in high school. I was the prototypical underachiever, did well on standardized tests, did poorly in reality. But entrepreneurship meant I did not have to ask for permission, and I could do what I wanted to do. And then it was up to the world to try and stop me. And that's what I loved about it. That's what I still love about it. It's you versus the world. It's you versus yourself. You have to create something from nothing when you're an entrepreneur. Nothing is handed to you. The donkeys in the audience who want to go work for somebody, you are not going to ever build anything of substance in your life. You're going to build somebody else's dream. They're going to say to you, here's my dream, build this piece of it, get to work. And then what you'll have after 10 years of working for somewhere is maybe some experience, maybe a paycheck, but none of your dreams will ever be realized. You will be 10% or 1% or 30% or in all likelihood 0.1% of somebody else's grand vision. That to me is no way to live a life. You need to pursue your own vision. You need to create something from nothing yourself. That is what entrepreneurship is about. Starting with the blank sheet of paper, starting with nothing but an idea, and then every day relentlessly pushing the ball forward, getting your ass kicked, seeing all the challenges, making mistakes, failing, then something breaks through. And then that breaks through and you, like a hawk, you look at that and you say, whoa, that blog is working. Engadget's getting advertising. Why is Engadget getting advertising? Whatever it is, I'm going to hire twice as many bloggers, and we're going to go faster and harder on Engadget. Oh, wait a second. The consumer electronics people really love blogs? I bet you that means that the video game people will love blogs. We need a video game blog. Let's start going there. Oh, wait, it's young people reading blogs? They're passionate? Okay. What else are people passionate about? Cars, television. Boom, boom, boom. Mobile phones. Let's attack this space. 18 months after we started Weblogs Inc., I get a phone call from a friend of Time Warner and says, you know, this blog thing you're doing, we're watching it. It's impressive. And I had met this person, John Borthwick, when I was doing Silicon Valley Reporter. So the first job, even though it was essentially, I didn't make much money and I was very proud of the product, I didn't get it over the finish line how I would have liked to. I learned a lot. And I learned more when we were going down than I did on the way up. That's when you build character. You know, if you win a fight and you knock the guy out, you don't know if you can take a punch. What have you proven? You've proven you can give some punches. Good. But when you get your ass kicked and you're bloody and you got that mouthpiece half hanging out and you're on the ground and your head is spinning, that's when you learn. How many people here have ever been punched in the face? Raise your hand if you've been punched in the face. That is a life-changing experience. 1 minute you're standing and the next minute, I mean, you're looking up at the ceiling going, what happened? What? And then your jaw starts, and the pounding, boom, 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 boom. The throbbing, your jaw feels like it broke off, and then you start to get up and you fall back down. That's when character is built. And now if you come in the ring and you knock somebody out, boom, one punch, like Mike Tyson, he didn't learn anything when he knocked people out. When he got knocked out, that's when he learned. That's when he learned he was vulnerable. That's when he learned he needed to work harder. I learned that when I got my ass kicked. I learned that I needed to work harder. I needed to be more focused. I needed to be more deliberate, all these things. Anyway, long story short, America Online says, we want to invest in your business. I said, wow, that's incredible. Not raising money right now, but okay, I'll think about it. And I had raised a little bit of money from a friend of mine who I had covered when I was doing my magazine. His name was Mark Cuban. He had a 10-person company. And his company was going to bring radio to the internet, broadcast.com. He sold it, you might have heard. It made a couple $1 billion, and then he bought a basketball team. And I had emailed him, hey, I'm doing this blog thing. We're going to raise, you know, like $100,000 or something. Are you interested? He said, sure. Boom. And he wrote a check. And he helped us build the business. Long story short, AOL buys the business. You can look on Wikipedia, you can look at different stories. Some people say it was for 25, some people say it was for $30 million. They're not incorrect, it was somewhere around there. And I'm sitting there. I've got about $15,000 left in the bank. I had just bought my wife a wedding ring and proposed to her. And I'm sitting there at my Bank of America account. And I'm hitting the refresh key. 15,000, 15,000, 15,000. And then a whole bunch of zeros. And I cried. I'm not going to lie to you. I cried. And my wife, she put her arm around me. What are you crying for? You just made tens of millions of dollars. What are you crying? And I said, I knew I could do it. And I fucked it up the first time. And I came back, and now I can take care of my whole family. And I never have to worry again. And all those people who doubted me, they could never doubt me again. Because I did it. That's entrepreneurship. You prove to the world that you can do it. And then once I had done that, all of a sudden, everybody respects me. I'm the biggest genius again. That's when I learned that it doesn't matter what other people think about you. They're a bunch of knuckleheads. The press, the bloggers, peers, they don't know anything. It's what you know about yourself that matters. What you know in your heart of what your ability is. These bloggers, the newspapers, 1 minute I'm the biggest genius in the world, I'm the next mogul, the next minute I'm a fraud, then all of a sudden I make a little bit of money and I sold the company, now I'm brilliant again. They don't know. It's like a house of mirrors. You ever go to the house of mirrors and you go in and then all of a sudden you're short in one mirror and then you go look and now you're fat and now you're really tall? That's what the press is. That's what all these outside things are. You got to know who you are as a person. And that's where entrepreneurship, the rubber meets the road. You know in your heart that you're good at what you do. Then you go through the world like a samurai. You just walk through all this noise with a huge sword right on your belt that you know you can just take out at any moment and just cut somebody in half or cut a problem in half. And there's nothing that's going to get in your way. And whatever stands in your way, that sword can just come out, cut it in half. And when you go through life with that approach, that nobody can stop you, no problem can stop you, there is nothing that you cannot overcome, that's when you're free. That's when you've reached the level that you're not part of the matrix, that you're not a battery in some big effing system that's run by the man. You've unplugged from the matrix. You are your own person. And nobody can ever tell you what to do or can stop you or can make you feel insignificant. You are a complete person. The rest of my career...
Stay off the computer as much as possible. Would be great.
The rest of my career is still being played out. However, there is a term in poker called a free roll. Does anybody know what the term free roll means?
Yeah.
A free roll in poker is when somebody buys you into a tournament and you get to do it for free. My life is a free roll. I already did it. So now everything I do, who cares? I can just try anything. I'm totally free. I could just go build stuff. And you know what? I was always free. I could have always done that. But it took being a success, getting my ass kicked, being a success, getting my ass kicked, to really actually understand that. And that's the problem you guys have right now. That's your challenge, is that you don't realize that you're samurais. And the world is going to tell you that you're not, and that you can't do it, that you can't build a company, that you can't build the next Google, you can't build the next Yahoo, you can't build the next Mahalo, you can't build the next Weblogs Inc. It's not possible. It's too hard. You don't have the connections. You don't have the capital. That's how the samurai keep the villagers who pick rice in order. But any of those villagers could stop and leave the rice fields and pick up a sword and start practicing. They just don't have it in their brains. They don't believe. That's why they never pick up the sword. That's the difference. Some of you are going to just pick rice for a living. And then other of you are going to have swords and you're going to conquer. I think you should choose the latter. I'll take any questions you have.
All right, Jason, that was great. I think gave a lot of food for thought there, and so let me open up to the questions. We have some questions for Jason.
I think they're in shock.
Well, Some of them have emailed me some questions, and
Okay.
but let me start off with one that I have been interested in asking you. Uh,
Uh-oh. I think he's in shock.
Sorry about that.
Okay. I think we broke the internet.
Yes. I'll just repeat my question. It seems like you in terms of your postings and tweets and updates, you seem to be a person that likes to stir the pot. And I'm just interested. Do you do that on purpose, or is it just your personality, or are you trying to get some higher objective there, or what's the deal?
Okay, it's not frozen. Just kidding. I wanted to pretend that it was frozen. It's really not frozen. Just kidding. So, are you saying that I might do something dramatic to make a point?
It is frozen.
No, it's not. No, I'm here. It's not frozen.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Check, check. 1 2 1 2.
You're good. You're good on our end.
Okay. Yes, I have been known to be dramatic in order to make a point. I've heard this criticism or observation before. I have always taken an approach of being honest and blunt. I have been rewarded for that when I was a journalist. I was rewarded with that my whole life. I grew up in a part of the country, in a community where people talk straight to each other. In Brooklyn, if you got a problem with somebody, you say, I've got a problem with you. And I never lost that. It's the only way I know how to be. So that's why, sometimes I rub people the wrong way. However, even if I might rub people the wrong way, you will know when I say something that it's actually how I feel. You will never, ever have to think and process, is Jason not telling the truth? Is he doing this for some ulterior motive, or what is he trying to say here? It's going to be pretty obvious what I'm trying to say. I was pretty blunt and clear with you guys today. I asked how many of you people want to pick rice for a living, and how many of you people want to be samurais? I will ask that question again. How many people would like to be in the field all day picking rice? Raise your hand. Nice and tall. Where's my rice picker? 1, 2. Great. Pickers. You can go pick rice. Who wants to be a samurai? Raise your hand if you would like a sword and be a samurai. Great. Excellent. The world needs people to harvest the rice. I'm not saying you're a bad person if you harvest rice. But you're not a samurai. And this is an entrepreneurial class.
Okay. Steve, you got a question? Joke question. Yeah, Nick. Oh, I had a good question here. What's your relationship with your employees in terms of, are they samurai or are they rice pickers?
If they come to work for me, they're coming to become Jedi Knights. They're not coming here to pick rice. The people who work for me wind up leaving and going on to do great things. Rafat Ali, who worked for my first company, created paid content and sold it for a reported $20 million. Shenny Jardin, who worked for me at my first company, did Boing Boing. My second company, Brian Alvey, my partner, went on to launch his own company, become CEO of Crowd Fusion. Peter Rojas and Ryan Block, who did Engadget with me, have raised money for their startup, GDGT, Gadget, gdgt.com. Sean Gold, who worked for me at the second company, has gone on to become CEO of Cocodot. There is a long list of people who've worked for me who have made lots of money, in some cases millions of dollars, and then gone on to become CEOs and founders of their own companies. I train people to be Jedi Knights. I need my lightsaber. Emily, get my lightsaber, please.
Okay. Other questions? No, several teams emailed me questions, and there were several good ones in there. Yeah, Brad.
In the early stages of a startup, do entrepreneurs need to worry about things like intellectual property and copyright and business licenses, things of that nature, or should they just be dedicating all their time to their ideas?
Okay. The question was, in the initial stage of a startup, should folks be worried about intellectual property, licenses, trademarks, or should they just be focused on getting a good idea going?
This is a good question. In the early days of a startup, yes. This is a good question. The force is strong in this one. So come to Setsmonic and work with me. Anyway, this is a good question. When you're doing a startup in the early days, sometimes you have to push the envelope. You should not break the law, but sometimes you do need to push the envelope and do something innovative. YouTube is a perfect example of this. YouTube created a platform for people to put up videos for free. Of course, some people abused that system. This put them in hot water. They had tons of lawsuits. Some of these lawsuits still exist and have not been settled. But they sold that company for $1.7 billion or thereabouts. And the people who sold those shares probably saw them double or triple in the stock market. And so if they were super concerned about the legal issues, maybe they wouldn't have gotten there. However, you have to balance this, and you have to be fair in life. You look at Napster, they wound up getting crushed, and everybody got sued and lost money. Now Napster got reborn, it got bought out of bankruptcy, I think, or something, and people created a new, legitimate service. So entrepreneurs can sometimes be known to push the envelope, sure. I think you should always be respectful and try to be fair. And stealing is not a good strategy in the long term, although it can be a very profitable strategy in the short term. So I would be lying to you if I said people stealing ideas and stealing intellectual property does not result in them winning. Sometimes it does. The system of entrepreneurship is not always fair. A lot of times people who are bad people win. A lot of times people who are stupid win. It's not perfectly binary that the hardest working, most honest guy or gal wins. So I always like to behave on a high ethical level because that's what samurais and Jedis do. And I would not want to win knowing I won having cheated. But there's other people like, who's the coach? Is it Bill Belichick or something who cheated?
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
How can that guy live with himself? He cheated to win the Super Bowl. He's always going to have an asterisk next to his name. And he probably could have won without cheating. So being a dirty cheater is not advisable in life. And also, Jedis and samurai do not cheat.
Okay. Excellent ethical advice. Steve?
I know my previous thing sounded like a joke back. Your distinction is not.
Okay, no, Steve, I understand your question now. Oh, okay.
Might work like it might be like a slave and mill. How do you just quantify it? When they leave, constantly developing and
Okay.
constantly trying to accomplish something.
Got it. Got it.
Away from that, but for the time being, they have families.
Got it.
Have to work.
Hey, Jason, really a good question. I thought it was a joke at first, but he's very serious and he's got a good point. Can
Okay.
you be a samurai rice picker? In other words, someone that is kind of a entrepreneur in a company that is trying to do some great things, or entrepreneurial in a different aspect of their life. Then,
Okay.
maybe.
This is a good question. I agree, and I've laid down my gun. And you will not be shot at this point in time. When samurai go into big companies, they tend to be told to check their sword at the door. If they do not check the sword at the door, they quickly are removed from the organization. And a samurai without a sword, or a Jedi without a lightsaber, is not much of a Jedi or samurai. So I think it's very hard. It's an uphill battle, and you're not going to get that much change. You will get much more change and grow much more if you work at a startup company. Now, everybody who works at the startup company is a samurai and Jedi by default. So I'm not saying that you have to be the top person at a startup company in order to be a Jedi or samurai. You could be the last person in the door at a company, and you're still the samurai or Jedi. You're just the one in training, and you're learning from the other samurai how to behave, the other gladiators, how to behave, how to attack. And so if you want to learn, sure, go to Boston Consulting Group. Yeah, go to IBM. Go work at Microsoft. Sure, Google, whatever. Go work at a big company and learn how not to run an organization, efficiently. Now, some of these organizations have some efficiency. I mentioned some companies that are the best companies in the world. They make a ton of money. But as companies get bigger, their ability to innovate goes down. So if you want to innovate and you want to build new stuff inside those big companies, it's very, very hard. So I suggest, sure, spend a year at one of those, maybe 2, and you can learn. But then go to a startup company. Do any job that they tell you to do. Get paid any salary they're willing to pay you, and just learn. And if the startup company succeeds, great. If it fails, even better, because you'll learn a lot more. But whatever you do, don't just check out and stay at one of those big companies for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, because you get a limited number of times to do something great in your life. You're not always, you get one ride around the planet, and then you die, and then the worms eat you, and it's over. I don't know if this class is in the South or something, and you guys are believing God or whatever, but it's not true.
We're deep in the heart of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, okay. When you die, it's over. There's no reboot. There's no second, put a quarter in the slot, try again. If anybody tells you that there is a second shot at life, they're lying. We die, and it's over. I know this for a fact.
Well, that is okay. That's great.
Yeah. So take it seriously, and go do something epic and fun. And don't waste your life working as a cog in the wheel. You can do that for a couple years and learn, no problem. Or if you have a kid and you need to, listen, if you get married and you have kids and you gotta, make it work. I understand. I'm not gonna criticize the work man here or woman, but you do have to try to be a samurai at some point in life.
Okay. Well, Jason, that was a great, insightful, energizing presentation, and I know you're a busy dude, so thank you very, very much for taking the time to do it. And on behalf of everybody here, I really thank you a lot.
It's my pleasure, and if you ever need to reach me, it's jason@calacanis.com, or I am @Jason on Twitter.
All right. Thank you very much, Jason. Bye-bye.
Cheers.